I'm Dr. Kelvin Kim. I'm the chairman of Stratic Global based in Pretoria, a nuclear project management company, and I'm a nuclear physicist by training. We are wanting to build a small modular nuclear reactor in Pretoria. That is a reactor that produces 100 megawatts thermal output and 35 megawatts of electricity. It has been designed, we are ready to build, and we are pleased that a company like C5 has approached us with a view to financing the operation. And so that is what we intend to do. Koeberg is a reactor of about 2,000 megawatts output, which, by the way, produces about half of the electricity of the whole of the Western Cape. So it's big, but it's small. It's a small building, but still it produces that much power. That's one of the great things about nuclear. The small modular reactor is much smaller. Our one will fit entirely on a rugby field, the whole set of buildings and everything, but it's small in output. And so the advantage is you can dot them around the country in different places. And that is why it was designed. I'm pleased and proud to say that South Africa was the first country in the world to start developing a commercial small modular reactor. And that was some 30 years ago now. So we're very experienced in what we've been doing. And we've got a great team of people and we're ready to go. Well, we did an analysis years ago now, and we figured out, we being a group of people linked to Eskom at the time, that South Africa was going to run out of electricity effectively in about 2007, which is exactly what did happen. And so it was decided that we needed to build more power stations and inland. Incidentally, South Africa is the same size as the whole of Western Europe added together. We are sitting in Pretoria now. Believe it or not, but the distance from Pretoria to Cape Town is the same as Rome to London. All South Africa's coal sits on the other side, the northern side of Pretoria, out in Mpumalanga and northern KZN. So we are moving electricity from here down to the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and Northern Cape. It's like electrifying London from Rome. That is obviously not very wise. That's why Koeberg was built where it is. So we wanted to be able to put more power into the Free State, into the agricultural areas around the country, the industrial areas, Secunda, and so on. We looked at it and said, we've got to do something that does not use water. The big traditional reactors sit on the coastline because they need the ocean to go through for system cooling. So we designed the small modular reactor to not use water for the system's cooling and instead to use helium gas. So we can put it wherever we like, and that is a massive advantage. Safety issues are always being brought up by people. Our reactor is incredibly safe. It was designed from day one to incorporate what is known as passive safety. And passive safety means you use the laws of physics on your side. You design something so that some closed down feature will fall under gravity if all the power switches off, that water flows and gas flows and any of that nature where they would naturally go by the laws of physics are in your favor and not working against you. So a bit of an in-house joke is if the worst of the worst were to happen, the best thing you can do is you all go down to the local coffee shop and you sit there and have a coffee and you decide how are we going to tell this to the boss and what are we going to tell everybody, and the reactor will look after itself. It'll warm up over a day or two, and then over 4 or 5 days, the reactor will just cool itself down and switch off and so on, with no human intervention required. That is a massive advantage. Okay, the term pebble bed, pebble means that the fuel is balls about the size of a cricket ball. The ball is made of graphite, and in the graphite ball, the little grains of uranium about the size of sugar grains. They each coated in multiple coats. It's a very high-tech business. It developed here in Pretoria. In Pretoria, we currently have the world's most advanced laboratory to make this type of fuel. We've produced it for South Africa and also for the United States. So the fuel is these balls. They're very robust. You can throw one on the concrete floor and it'll bounce to some degree. In contrast, a reactor like Koeberg has got 3.8 meter long metal fuel elements. And those things are very delicate. They're worth tens of millions of rands each. If you drop one half a meter, it'll be a write-off. So they're difficult to deal with and very fragile. We made ones that, if you like, you can put in the back of your bakkie and ride over a rough farm road. That's not how you would do it. They would all sit in special holders like egg holders or something like that. But they're very robust, just ideal for African conditions. As far as the word modular is concerned, there are two aspects to this. The one is that the small modular reactor was designed that you can have one reactor on the control room, but the control room was designed such that you can add up to about 10 reactors on the same control room. It's like South African big trains. We have some of the world's biggest trains. You can have half a dozen locomotives on one train, but there's one driver, and he controls all the locos. You don't need 6 or 7 drivers. Same with our SMR. You can add them as you get the money or as the demand warrants it, at the pace that the country can afford. What's also a factor with modular is you're going to be building the reactor indoors in a factory situation. So you get the advantage of all the controls, laser beams and so on like that, to make it absolutely dead accurate, such that when you go out on site, you just click it all together like a playset. There's no welding on site where things can get slightly crooked. It brings the speed of production down and your costs down substantially. Well, the great advantage of our gas-cooled, helium gas-cooled SMR is you can put it wherever you like. So if you have some community that wants electricity, that reactor can be owned by an individual group of farmers, a company, a municipality, a province, any grouping whatsoever can have one. If you have one in, say, an agricultural community, it can service directly to a farm, it can service local industry as well, and the interface between the two, such like a citrus farmer wants to now produce and can orange juice. He can do that by having the electricity available. You do not have to be connected to the grid. You can have a grid which is completely separate, supplying just a group of customers that want to buy off that particular plant. It's small. You can put it anywhere as long as the land is appropriate. You wouldn't quite put it on the top of a mountain, but you could if you want to. And you would just have to check that the ground is geologically stable and those sorts of things. And so there's no big dramas associated with putting a reactor wherever you want it. Well, I think you'll find, in fact, if you look now all over the world, the whole concept of SMRs is just booming, and this was all started by South Africa. All over the place, SMRs are now booming, but we were the world's first to start, and we're leaders at the moment. We're getting people from all over the world approaching us now and saying, golly, we did not realize you South Africans were so good and so advanced. So I think this is now an unstoppable, huge boulder rolling down the hill. SMRs will come about. So now the advantage is who's getting in first to get advantage of the economics and of being early investors and so on. And it's there where we have this approach from C5 Capital now that we're so pleased about, that they are indicating that they're keen to develop the financing for us going ahead to build the first one. We have had a number of approaches, half a dozen approaches from other African countries that are saying this is the answer for us. Because African countries are huge in comparison to European countries. The European solutions don't work for African countries. They have site mining operations far away from their latest transmission lines. They can have farming operations far away from where the power lines are. You can now take the electricity to where you want the electricity. That is terribly important. And a lot of these African leaders have now realized that this is the solution. Why be bound by having to have an ocean or having to have something because some small European country says this is the way to go? No, African solutions for Africa, thought up by African residents, the people who live here.
Thank you. My name is Chris Opperman. I'm Operational Director for C5 Capital for Africa and the Middle East. C5 Capital is a venture capital company that invests in spearheading new technologies, specifically nuclear technology and fourth generation nuclear technology. We've made an investment in a company called X Energy that is invested in pebble bed nuclear reactors. But the technology is coming from South Africa. It was developed here by scientists in South Africa, and we are very excited to work with these scientists in forming a new consortium in a company called Western Energy. And the idea is that we want to develop the first concept modular nuclear reactor in Cape Town, hopefully at Kuberg, where most of the permissions already exist. And we're very excited about the strategic partnership that we can announce today with SAI, which is the preeminent agricultural organization, not only in South Africa, but in Africa, and the development of a strategic partnership to develop nuclear technology for the use in agriculture and also for agricultural development and food security. So C5 Capital founder is Andre Pinaar, who's South African by birth and who's developed this venture capital company. We have $500 million under investment in various funds. These funds invest in nuclear technology, in space and space applications, and also in the digital future, AI, cloud. And the idea is that we want to bring all our expertise to bear to develop and raise the funding for the first pebble bed nuclear reactor concept to be developed in South Africa. What excites me about it is that it is scalable, so you can put a reactor down in a remote region and you could generate baseload power. You don't need to be close to a big water source because the reactor is not water dependent to cool down. It is absolutely safe because of the nature of the pebble bed reactor process, and is fourth generation nuclear technology that was developed in South Africa and that has many applications. It's got an application to develop nuclear baseload power, but it can also be applied in space, and it is scalable enough that you could actually, in the development of a space port, actually do the energy generation. So there's many things that actually is favorable, but the most important thing in our situation today is that there's zero carbon emission with the generation of the technology, and so it is very clean technology.